If you want to take control of your brain, you have to know how to get dopamine naturally from sources that are natural and healthy. Supplements are one option. I've shared the best dopamine supplement below. But there are also ways to boost dopamine without supplements. The key is knowing the best natural sources of dopamine. Here's a list. Once you know how to boost dopamine levels naturally, you can take control of your energy levels and your motivation levels, and you can stop addictions and beat cravings. It all comes down to your ability to control dopamine levels. Why you need to get dopamine naturally. Have you ever wondered why your productivity levels and motivation levels seem to change all the time? Sometimes you're motivated and have high productivity levels. Sometimes you're basically the walking dead. One of the reasons why your energy levels fluctuate so much is because of dopamine. Imagine this. You're sitting there staring at the computer. Your exams, or perhaps your work deadline, is coming up. You tell yourself to work. But instead you waste time on Facebook, or you head out for a drink or for a smoke, or you binge watch Netflix. That's how I used to live. And it's how billions of other people live. The problem is you are boosting dopamine levels using unhealthy sources, social media, smokes, coffee, alcohol. They all boost dopamine levels, but in a bad way. Those unhealthy sources of dopamine prevent you from being highly self-motivated. And they can massively interrupt your quality of life. Natural sources of dopamine are essential for balancing brain chemicals. Most times, when people are unproductive and unmotivated, it's because of a chemical imbalance. The most important brain chemicals for productivity and motivation are dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that transmits signals between nerve cells. 1. Dopamine motivates you to take an action. When you perform a positive action, your brain is doing it in anticipation of the release of dopamine that will result from it. Basically, it's the carrot in front of the horse's face. One of the best natural sources of dopamine is food. We ingest tyrosine, an amino acid, that becomes dopa, and that dopa then becomes dopamine. That dopamine is then passed through the brain via dopamine machinery. If that dopamine machinery is impaired, a variety of complications can arise, including Parkinson's, ADHD, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and Alzheimer's. Thing is, when you don't use natural source of dopamine, you kill your motivation levels. What this all means is that we need the right amount of dopamine in the right place at the right time. Other brain chemicals that work alongside dopamine are serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that can have a huge effect on mood and emotion. Serotonin flows when you feel high self-regard. People who are lonely and depressed have low serotonin levels too. Serotonin is released when you reflect on past accomplishments. Your brain perceives little difference between reality and imagined reality, so when you imagine reliving past glory, you release serotonin. Healthy exposure to the sun also releases serotonin. Oxytocin. Oxytocin creates trust and intimacy. It's the cuddle hormone. So if you hug people a lot, it's because your brain wants to keep a steady flow of oxytocin. Oxytocin also improves cardiovascular health and improves your immune system. Endorphins. Endorphins are released to alleviate stress and anxiety. Exercise is the best natural way to produce endorphins. Laughter is another way. And aromatherapy helps also, especially lavender. You can read more about these chemicals on Tina Wen's blog The Utopian Life. These brain chemicals are the big deal behind motivation and productivity. You can increase motivations by boosting levels of dopamine naturally. Managing your dopamine will give you motivation to get fit, lose weight, get the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend, succeed in your career, achieve that ambitions, get that bucket list item done. I personally struggled for years to find the motivation to lose weight. I always wanted to be healthy, to look good, and to have toned muscles. But I lacked motivation. Then I did a ton of research into dopamine. And it turned out I was totally addicted to boosting dopamine levels with sources that are unnatural. Here's how dopamine works. Your brain anticipates dopamine in association to a specific thing or activity. For instance, exercise. This anticipation makes you want to exercise. You exercise, your brain releases dopamine. You feel good. Your brain associates exercise with feeling good. You want to exercise again. You soon get fit. Dopamine motivates everything you do. Where mankind 100% natural and not entirely self-destructive, this dopamine situation would be an entirely positive thing. We would all be boosting dopamine levels naturally, such as by eating fruit and other healthy food, exercise, work hard, and do other positive things, because those are the natural ways of boosting dopamine levels. Problems arise when you boost dopamine levels from sources that are unnatural and unhealthy. To prove this, go get yourself a horse. Well, don't really, but take it from a horse lover. If you put a carrot on a stick in front of a horse, the horse will keep walking until it gobbles up the carrot. That's a good thing, because the horse will get exercise while it's moving. But what if you put that carrot in the wrong place? Place the carrot above the horse's neck and it will constantly arch its neck backwards until it gets a stiff neck. Put the carrot in the wrong place and the horse will still try to get it even though it's harming itself. Your brain is that horse. If you're not productive and not motivated, it's because your carrot is in the wrong place. By which I mean that you are boosting dopamine levels through sources that are unnatural and unhealthy. Here's what happens when you don't get dopamine naturally. Unnatural dopamine sources are brutal. For instance, when you're addicted to eating sugar, or you are addicted to smoking. Dopamine is the way your brain motivates itself to do something. Your brain, left to its own natural course, will release dopamine from positive activities like completing a task and going on a winning streak. Here are some ways your brain gets a dopamine hit naturally. Completing tasks, achieving things, going on a winning streak, making love, exercising. Left to its own natural state, your brain will boost dopamine levels through natural sources. Then came money and commercialization. Some clever scientist in a lab learned how to get a dopamine hit from unnatural sources. And they abused it. Companies realized they could make mind control a reality by making people get dopamine from their products. A fat cat business owner then said to the scientist, "Can you make it so people get dopamine from our products so people will get addicted to them?" An exchange was made whereby the scientist made a packet of money, the businessman got you addicted to their products, and people became slaves because someone was controlling their brain's motivator. Flash forward several years to the present day. People's brains have now learned to use unnatural sources to boost dopamine. People use unnatural source of dopamine, like eating sugar, smoking cigarettes, watching movies, and so on. Their brains are now manipulated into getting dopamine through negative actions. We can think of these things as bad mental hygiene because they are impurities both of body and mind, because their brains are motivated to get those unhealthily high dopamine levels from unhealthy products. They are no longer motivated to do the right things that would have released enough dopamine to satisfy it had it not been for those corrupt businessmen who brainwashed them. Bad news, unhealthy sources of dopamine tend to give the brain more dopamine than the healthy sources of dopamine. Problem is this: you get more of a boost in dopamine levels from unhealthy sources than healthy ones. Take exercise for instance. Exercise only releases X amount of dopamine. So you do get a hit of dopamine from exercise, but a small hit. Having a cigarette, watching a movie, especially an adult movie, eating junk food, those activities boost dopamine levels more than exercise does. And of course, exercise takes much more effort than those activities. So now your brain says, well, I could exercise and feel quite good. Or I could just sit here watching TV and drinking Coke and feel amazing. What do you think your brain is going to choose? It's like me asking you, would you like to earn $100 for working your butt off, or $1,000 for doing nothing? I'll do nothing. Thanks for the free money. The reality of the situation: people are highly motivated and highly productive. They are motivated to get dopamine from unhealthy sources. The success you get dopamine from those sources. They smoke, have far too much sugar, etc. because they get dopamine from unhealthy sources. They don't get them from natural, positive sources. They don't exercise or work to get dopamine. These people are motivated and productive, just in totally the wrong way. Many people suffer from addictions because they've learned to get dopamine hits either in the wrong quantities or from the wrong sources. You will not be surprised when I say that many of the world's largest manufacturers have succeeded precisely because they are able to boost your dopamine levels from sources that are unnatural. For starters, all foods that contain lots of sugar lead to a dopamine hit. Here's the proof. Are you addicted to Coke, as in cola? That's because of the amount of sugar it contains. The sugar boosts dopamine levels in your brain. Your brain says, wow, I must have done something right here because I'm drowning in dopamine now. You've trained your brain that Coke equals dopamine. You're addicted. Smoking cigarettes. Same deal. Nicotine gives you more of a boost of dopamine than a cigarette, except for you get that dopamine hit one time you're addicted. Those adult videos you watch when no one's home? Yeah, same deal, especially if you indulge in them. Thanky, there are some powerful ways that you can overcome these addictions. The 2 ways to manage dopamine sources so you're more motivated. Increase dopamine naturally, get it from natural sources, lower or replace dopamine hits from unnatural sources. This is the best way to stop being lazy. And it will double motivation and productivity. So you want to boost dopamine levels naturally. But here's the problem with that. If you're gotten used to hits from unhealthy sources of dopamine, changing them can be a challenge. When you use drugs or sugar to boost dopamine levels, your brain then wants more dopamine, and it's not happy with the amount it gets doing healthy activities. If you've been smoking, eating too much, watching adult videos, or taking in other huge hits of dopamine, your brain has learned to take more dopamine than it naturally should. This means that your brain is now unsatisfied with the normal levels of dopamine. It wants the big hits. It wants the sugar, the cigarettes, etc. So now you've got a brain that only feels satisfied if it's given unhealthy levels of dopamine from unhealthy sources. Problem. Because now you're left 2 choices. Continue to get dopamine hits from unnatural sources, which will make you happy for a bit but ultimately kill you. Replace dopamine sources so they are more natural. This will be a very healthy choice, but you'll feel like crap for a while. Obviously the right choice here is choice 2. Do not do the unhealthy thing. Let the brain return to its healthy state, and deal with the anxiety and depression while your brain returns to a healthy state. Problem is it's not that easy. Because your previous dopamine addiction has hijacked your brain. Your brain wants very high levels of dopamine. You have trained yourself to boost dopamine levels through sources that are not natural and not healthy. If your brain doesn't get those high levels of dopamine, you will experience symptoms of dopamine withdrawal. Most people notice a massive difference in self-esteem when they try to change their dopamine habits. When you lose self-esteem, you'll start to think, do I deserve to be happy, healthy anyway? And when you think you don't deserve happiness and health, well, then sod it, where are my cigarettes? And so because of all this, it is very hard to get motivated and healthy. How to get dopamine naturally to boost productivity and motivation. If you have good control of your dopamine levels, you will know it. You'll have high levels of motivation, you'll feel energy coursing through your body, you'll have a healthy libido, and you'll have high levels of confidence. Those are the benefits of managing your dopamine levels. If you do not have properly managed dopamine levels, you will probably know it too, for other reasons. Problems from unhealthy sources of dopamine. Fatigue, low libido, lack of focus and concentration, lack of motivation, apathy, depression, insomnia, memory loss, procrastination. How to boost dopamine levels naturally. Truth is, while you return your brain to natural dopamine control, you'll feel like crap. Period. However, you can make things easier for yourself by boosting dopamine levels naturally. While your brain returns to natural dopamine levels, bolster it with positive, natural, healthy activities. You can quit smoking, give up sugar through your diet, stop watching adult films, be a no-fap, and stop all those other unhealthy actions by replacing them with healthy actions. You're killing the bad dopamine and replacing it with good dopamine. How to increase dopamine naturally from healthy sources. In a moment I will share with you the best natural ways to get dopamine. But first, a warning. You're going to think, these activities won't help me and won't give me what I want. Why would you think that? Because psychology. Remember, dopamine is what your brain wants. But your brain has been boosting dopamine levels from sources that are not natural and not healthy, so when I tell you, go and exercise, your brain will say, exercise doesn't give me what I want. Smoking does, you see my point. Because your brain has learned the wrong thing, you will think the right thing is bullshit. Which is fine. So long as you understand that your current perception of the right thing is warped, you can counterattack your intuitive response. Here's my strategy. Let yourself say, that's bullshit. Then say, that seems like bullshit because I have learned to think the wrong way. Then say, I'm learning to do this the right way now, so I have to just put my thoughts behind me for a second, then go and do the right thing even though you will not feel like doing it. This attitude will help you to get through the challenges of managing your dopamine levels. 8 ways how to get dopamine naturally. 1. Natural food sources of dopamine. Food is one of the best ways how to get dopamine naturally. Try adding these to your diet. Animal products, fruits, apples, bananas, avocados, watermelon, vegetables, beets, fava beans, leafy greens, lima beans, sea vegetables, nuts, almonds, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, oatmeal, chocolate, America green tea. Foods containing probiotics. 2. The best dopamine supplement. There are many natural health supplements that provide dopamine. The best supplements are curcumin, found in turmeric, ginkgo biloba, L-theanine, contained in green tea, and acetyl L-tyrosine. The highest rated dopamine supplement on Amazon is Brain Food. Get it on Amazon. 3. Boost dopamine with exercise. You already know that exercise is the best thing you can do to improve your brain functioning. Exercise is also one of the best natural ways to increase dopamine levels. The effects of exercise on the brain have been studied by Dr. John Ratey, psychiatrist and author of Spark, the revolutionary new science of exercise and the brain. Ratey's research shows that exercise promotes the growth of new brain receptors, thereby raising baseline levels of dopamine. Have you ever been out running when you've felt runner's high? That's because you had a dopamine release caused by the physical exercise. Importantly, you don't need to do extraneous exercise to get a dopamine release. Even more gentle exercises like Tai Chi, yoga, and Qigong will provide a release of dopamine. Why not take a look at my guide to the 13 types of yoga? It's great for both calming the mind so you're less affected by cravings, while also providing healthy dopamine. Point 3. Meditation for dopamine. A personal thing to do is to use meditation for dopamine. Meditation is known to produce more than 100 health benefits. Recent scientific research has also shown that you can use meditation for dopamine boosts. 6. Meditation also helps stop cravings. This makes it one of the best things you can do to overcome addictions. So, start using meditation for dopamine. Point 4. Creative sources of dopamine. Creative hobbies also improve dopamine levels. 7. Activities such as painting, drawing, dancing, photography, and woodworking all help to put your mind into a meditative state, which in turn increases dopamine levels naturally. Point 5. A surprising way to boost dopamine levels is with music. Somewhat surprisingly, music is also a great way to increase dopamine levels. 7. Dopamine levels improve during moments of anticipation, which is the main reason why anticipation is often better than the real thing. When you listen to your favorite song, your brain is anticipating the parts you're particularly like, such as the chorus. This releases dopamine. Point 6. Boost dopamine levels by learning new things. Learning something new increases dopamine production. 8. This is mostly due to ancestry. Your ancestors needed to learn things like how to make a wheel in order to survive. Nature motivated them to do so by providing them with dopamine. Now, whenever you learn something new, you get a release of dopamine and you can feel your connection to your ancestors too. Try reading a random wiki or watching an instructional video. Point 7. Boost dopamine.